Good morning, I'm Pam Tuggle. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Lana Jones, and we're here to do the October Sew Fun. So excited that you are joining us today. We are from the Pacific Northwest, for those of you who are outside our area. And if you are from outside our area, would you just kind of quickly in the responses tell us where you're from so we can see where everybody is at? We'd also like to remind you that we have fabric in our stores. 5 of our stores will be having fabric now, and that is our Tukwila, Everett, Silverdale, Olympia, and Bellevue. And a lot of our projects today were done with the fabric from the store. So very, very fun to have this fabric in our stores. Any products that you see that we're talking about today, you can buy at online at qualitysewing.com. You can go into our stores and get it. And so please take a look. And I believe there is a list online, is that correct? There is a list online that you can download and take a look at and actually check off the things that you want to buy. We are going to do 3 prizes during our presentation. And then after the presentation has completed and it's loaded onto our website, then you can post your show and tell, and then we'll pick 3 people from the show and tell and give away 3 more prizes. Okay, so we're going to start out with one of our books. Pam's going to start out talking about our quilted wall hanging book. You can see a picture of it right here. So Pam, go ahead.
All right, well, I found this book to be so much fun. And actually the projects, I hate to use the term easy because sometimes what's easy for you is not easy for me and vice versa. But I really feel that this book, pretty much everything in it was really designed for beginners and intermediate. And as well as the next book we'll talk about also. But it was a lot of fun. Now, I have a hard time doing exactly what it says to do in the book. I think patterns are suggestions. I think that, so I like to change things up. So because of that, I tend to have to keep a fabric key for myself. So I write down and put a piece of the actual fabric onto a card so I know exactly what I'm using it for. So you can see that I've done that with pretty much all of them in this book. So the first one that I did was this one over here called Staggered, and it was a lot of fun to put together. This actually was a wall hanging and has now become a baby quilt. But I had some leftover prints with Dumbo and stuff, but each piece is a different size. So you're actually putting together a jigsaw puzzle. So it was quite fun to do. It wasn't your standard, you know, just stitch and open up and stitch and open up. I had to figure out based on their diagram where everything went. So, and I did do a directional fabric, so that was a challenge also. So sometimes when we have something that really is beginner friendly, we can turn around and make it not so beginner friendly. But anyway, I had a lot of fun doing this. And the fabrics here, like I said, were some leftovers that I had. But I had my backing, or not my backing, but, well, the grunge fabric here. We have a lot of the grunge fabric in our stores, so that's fun. And the next thing I did was, this is called God's Modern Eye. In the book, this is let's see, this is teal, pink, and white. I really changed this, or it's gold, teal, and white, excuse me. So where I put the gray in the book is white, so it's a very different look. It went together so fast, you'd be surprised. But my most favorite project, I think of all, in this particular Sew Fun, was my mountains. What I did here was quite different. I'm going to show you a picture of what the mountains look like in the book. So what I did, where the actual brown and white was, I put a muslin piece. I stitched it out, instead of the brown and the white, I did just muslin. And then I bought this really awesome ombre fabric, and I ironed steam seam on it, and then I just kind of cut it all up so I could make the mountains look fragmented, like a mountain. So I had a lot of fun with that. And I didn't do the purples and the yellows. I did the blues, because you know the bluest skies you've ever seen are in Seattle. So anyway, I did have a lot of fun. That's just a branch from a tree that came from a craft store. And it does call for jute, and I didn't have any at the time. And so I just thought I'd use some yarn. What I do think I would do in the future, and I probably will change this out, is change it to the jute because it keeps coming untied. So anyway, so that was a lot of fun to make there. So Lana, go ahead and talk about yours.
Okay, so mine are over here on this wall. And the first one is the jelly roll one on the right there, the colorful one. And what I want to show you I did is I wanted to bring the jelly roll up into the new world today. So if you look really closely, I have embroidered a piece of fabric before I cut it up for the block. So I digitized this design, stitched it on one complete hooping of several different colors, and then I cut that up and put it into my jelly roll quilt so it looks more modern with the embroidery in it. And all the fabrics here came from the quality sewing fabric section. And then I am a big person as far, a big proponent on half-inch bindings. I know a lot of people use quarter-inch bindings, and that's fine. That's what you want. That's great. But I prefer half-inch bindings. So you'll find probably only one of my quilts over the last 25 years has quarter-inch binding. So everything is done with half-inch binding. That is just my preference. I also used, in my projects, I also used the Bosal single-sided fusible fleece. Now, if you've never used fusible fleece before, this is the best I have ever used. A lot of times I see fusible fleece leave a bumpy feeling on your fabric after you fuse it down. This does not. Now, it looks like there's two different types here. It's the same thing. You might get one or the other package. It's just different packaging, but they're the same thing. So this fusible fleece was just fabulous to use in all the pieces that we did today. This one is called Modern Mountain, and instead of using the fabric suggestions that they showed, I use Christmas fabric because I have a lot of charm packs that I've bought over the years, and they're so pretty. I just leave them all together, and I never take them apart. So I decided to break into those stashes and open up the Christmas charm packs, and the instructions in the book said to cut these at 4 inches. Well, my charm packs were 5, so I thought, why cut them down? Just make it 5. So I just use a 5-inch charm packs instead. And then you sew everything together in the style that they show. And then what you do is you take your backing and put it together. And then you put the backing over the top and you sew it around and flip it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about getting perfect corners here in a little bit, because a lot of times when you sew a corner, you get kind of a rounded corner instead of a square corner. So in a few minutes, I will show you how I do a perfect corner.
Lana?
Yes.
We do have a question from a customer that says, when you cut up the fabric that's been embroidered, were you worried that the threads might come out? No,
not at all. Not at all. Oh, yes. The question was, when you cut up a piece of fabric that's embroidered like I did here, do you ever worry about the threads coming undone? No, I do not. There was one design that I have done that I did because the stitches were longer on the edge, and I just sewed around the edge. But most of the time, except that one design, never do I ever worry about a cut-up embroidery like that. Good question.
Somebody wanted to know how you got all the colors in your binding.
Oh, great question. How did I get all the colors in my binding? The fabric came that way. Isn't that fabulous? This is from Quality Sewing. The fabric actually came that way as an ombre fabric. Isn't that absolutely stunningly beautiful? To quilt this one, I used the meander ruler. We can't get the specific meander ruler anymore, but we can get the Sew Steady meander ruler. I forget what it's called.
The winding way.
The winding?
The winding way.
The winding way. You can get that, which is a similar design, and that makes it really super easy to quilt with the westerly feet on this. This one is called the Geometric Plaid. And I really had fun putting this together. One of the things is I embroider a lot, and so I don't get to sew a lot. So putting these projects together was super fun because I actually got to sit at my sewing machine and sew. And so that's always fun. So cutting the strips up and sewing it all together was just great fun for me. And I did not have a darker green in the fabrics that I purchased, and I didn't want to go buy a half a yard or a yard of fabric for these little tiny blocks here. So I just put black organza over this fabric to get my darker squares here. And that worked out super, super well. And since this is modern quilt, if you notice, all the quilting on these were very simple because modern quilting doesn't have elaborate quilting on it, or at least it usually doesn't. So I just used my, my ruler. Oops, I'll show you. I'll show that to you in a minute when we go over to the sewing machine. I don't have one right here. My new ruler by Quilter Select. Oh, thank you, Pam. This is a new quilting ruler by Quilter Select. Is that too close? Okay. Quilter Select. And I'll talk about that in a minute and why this is so awesome to use for your projects. And okay, so I think we'll go over to the sewing machine. I'm going to do my demos. Okay, so I've got my little quilt sandwich already prepared here. And quilting straight lines is sometimes really difficult to just put on a sewing machine and sew a straight line. And these rulers are usually used with a ruler foot, like the westerly ruler foot. And the thing with the ruler foot is that's free motion. And even though I love free motion, I know there's a lot of people that either are just learning, don't want to have anything to do with it, have tried and just not been successful. So I want to show you how to do straight lines super easy with this ruler and a straight stitch sewing machine. So I've already made my quilt sandwich, and this ruler has lines on it. And then I also use the G-Easy ruler stickers so I remember which line I'm using so I don't mess up and put my ruler on the wrong line. The other thing that's very cool about the Quilter Select ruler is it has a finish on the back, and that finish prevents the ruler from sliding. So it makes a perfect edge for you to butt the ruler up against, or the foot up against, and it's not going to slide as you're doing your quilting. So the first thing I'm going to do is know my foot really well and my machine, and I know that my needle is 3/8 of an inch away from the left side of my needle. So to make math really easy, because I'm not a math person, 3/8 and 5/8 equals an inch. So we're going to do our quilting at 1 inch. So with the 3/8 and the 5/8 inch marked on my ruler, I am going to create my quilting lines. Now this could be cross hatching or just straight lines or whatever works for you. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to put my 5/8 mark right on a line. It could be a line of pieces pieced together. It could be the line of your edge of your fabric, or it could be a line that you drew onto your fabric. Whatever line you're going to use, you're going to put 5/8 on there. And then you're going to set your machine up for straight stitch, and 2.5 stitch length is just fine. Put this on 5/8. And then when I'm sewing, I'm just going to keep that line going straight. Foot's going to be butt up right against the ruler. Now you may notice that this ruler is super thick, and that is not a big deal if you have a low shank ruler, or excuse me, a low shank machine, because it's never going to go behind the foot. It's always going to stay on the side. So this thick ruler can be used for any machine. And then as I stitch, I am going to be able to quilt a perfectly straight line. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my 5/8 again, mark my, put my mark line on there, drop my foot, and do another line. Okay, so the quilting will be straight and super easy. Now, if I want an angle, I have marked my angle on here. So this has 45 and 30-degree angles. I can put my 45 on the line that I'm using, and now I can quilt at a 45-degree angle on my project. So this makes it super easy to get nice straight lines for my projects. My quilting will be perfect. It will look beautiful. It's straight. I have even stitched in the ditch with this ruler. So it makes it super easy to use this ruler on a lot of projects, and it's not so long that you're not sitting back here trying to do your project. So this is the perfect size, and with the marking of the G-Easy strips, that really super duper helps. Now, one of the things I mentioned, since I'm already here at the machine, I'm going to do my other demo. One of the things that I mentioned, Pam, could you grab me my scissors up there? They're underneath something up, like right underneath all that stuff. I know, black scissors. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot them. One of the things that I mentioned in the projects is to get a perfect corner, and I'm going to show you a perfect corner in a little bit on marine vinyl. And this is how I do my corners to get a perfect corner. It's something I learned in a tailoring class many years ago.
Hey,
now,
Anna, real quick, someone's asking, what are the holes in the ruler for?
just your fingers. Yeah, honestly, that's the only thing I know that they're for, is for your fingers to kind of snug in there. But my hands just kind of go all over the place. I don't really use them specifically, but that's what they're for. That's a good question. So I've already sewn my seam. I've sewn a 1/2 inch seam on here. I don't know if you can see that. That's just white. If I have to backstitch at one end, I backstitch, but I sew right off the other end. I don't backstitch down here in my corners at all. Okay? I'm going to set up my machine for a 1.0 stitch length. I'm going to change to my open toe foot. Now, this is a FOF, so I have my FOF feet with me. FOF has 2 open toe feet. It has a 9mm and a 6mm. I very seldom use my 9mm. And I know this is a 9mm machine, but honestly, when I'm sewing and doing decorative things and I'm not going over the 6mm mark, I like this one because the toes are closer to where I'm sewing and I won't get any tunneling. So I most of the time will be using my 6mm foot. I just have to remember not to go past 6mm. Okay, so I've already sewn my seams. Okay, and now I'm going to go into here and I'm going to drop my foot down about an inch or so before the corner, and I'm not going to backstitch, and I have a 1.0 stitch length, and I'm going to restitch this line, okay, to reinforce it, but also I'm going to cut this corner off. Okay, I'm going to use needle down, and I'm going to restitch. And when I get about, excuse me, I have to take off my glasses because I don't have my other glasses here.
When you get a chance, Lana, too, another customer has asked why you can change the foot.
Because I can see, but, oh, yes. The question was, why did I change the foot? And that's a great question, because if I use this foot, even though there's clear plastic here, it distorts my view. I cannot see what I'm doing. So the open toe foot lets me see the seam that I'm stitching over. Okay, so I use my open toe foot a lot for this. Okay, so now I'm going to restitch that same line, and when I get about a stitch away from the corner, I'm going to turn, and I'm going to take 2 to 4 stitches across that corner, and then go up the other side. Okay, no back stitching. Okay. And you can see that I've cut that little corner off. Okay. And now I'm going to take my scissors, and between the original corner and the new corner, I'm just going to trim my fabric right across there, nice and straight. Now here's the trick. I'm not done, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do, and I don't have a little iron over here, but pretend I do. I'm going to take my point pressing tool. If you don't have one of these, you need one of these. It's not on your list, but this one's probably 40 years old. I got it when I was 2. So this thing has been around forever. It's my favorite tool, one of my favorite tools. So once I get my corners cut off, I'm going to take my corners and I'm going to put them over this, and with my iron, I will press this open. And then I will, and with an, excuse me that I don't have an iron, and then I will flip it to the other side and I will press this side open as well. All the way down, not just the corner. I will press open the entire seam. Okay? What that does when you press open the seam and press that corner is you almost don't have to use any type of tool to poke out the corner, although this is the Floriani one. It's a really great one to use. Then when you flip the corner around and you have pressed everything, finger press this one a little bit more, that will help. Okay. When I flip that corner over, that corner without even hardly pushing is already out there. And then I can take my little pointy thingy here and push that out the rest of the way for a perfect, sharp, crisp corner.
One more question that a customer asked is, why did you not backstitch when you sewed that little tiny seam?
It adds bulk. You don't backstitch when you sew that little tiny seam is the question. Why don't I backstitch on that seam? It's because it adds bulk in that seam and it's not necessary. It's not a supporting seam. It is just a extra seam, I guess, on top of another seam. So it doesn't need to be backstitched, and you really don't need the bulk in there. Now I'm going to show you a pillow that I did a little bit that I did with marine vinyl. And now trying to get a perfect corner with marine vinyl would be real difficult if you didn't do this process. And I'll show you how perfect my corners are. But remember when I stopped and turned the corner here, I stopped about a stitch length before the corner. When I'm doing something as heavy as marine vinyl, I'm going to stop back 2 or 3 stitches depending on the thickness of the vinyl, and I will still get a perfect corner. The thicker your fabric, the further back you stop before you turn the corner. So instead of taking 2 or 3 stitches, I might take 4, 5, or maybe 6 depending on how thick the fabric is. But that makes a perfect, perfect corner. Okay, let me see my list. I forgot now.
Well, actually, Lana, if you don't mind me interrupting for just 1 second, I think we have some really awesome products that we were going to talk about.
Yes, and I forgot about those.
Yeah,
yes.
so I'm just
the perfect opportunity, and
yes.
we need to do
a drawing.
Yes.
Yes, but I do want to say that we've got some really awesome folks joining us from Tennessee and from California and Texas and Michigan. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to see how many people are being able to now participate in these wonderful sew funds that we have from outside of the Pacific Northwest. So thank you so much for joining us today. And Lana, go ahead and do a drawing, and then we'll talk about the other products.
Right. Okay, so we are going to give away, let's give away this great, oh my gosh. Can I keep this instead? This is fabulous. We're going to give away the Eye of the Beholder. It's a Christmas Berries quilt pattern. Isn't that absolutely stunning? And that is going to go to Lois Young. Oh. Lois Young. Okay, so that is the first prize there. So congratulations to Lois. That is awesome. Wow. We're going to talk about these 2 products right up here up front. And one is called the rotary scissors, and the other one is called the retractable precision cutter. And these are both fabulous products. And the precision, the retractable precision cutter, they give these such long names. Okay, hard for a person that can't talk well. The thing I love about this is it's like an X-Acto knife, but the blade is ceramic. I don't know if you can see that in there, but the blade is ceramic. It's very sharp. It cuts through lots of stuff. I used it when I wanted to sew something together and like cut the stabilizer and flip it or something like that. It's so sharp though, you have to just barely touch it and it cuts. Very, very awesome product to have in your stash of stuff. The other item is the rotary scissors. Now this does not cut fabric. It is for paper. So like your Christmas wrap and things like that, but it also will cut something as heavy as Craftex. So just a great little cutter to have on hand to cut up your papers, your Craftex, anything like that, any paper-like thing. So just a cool product that slices come out with. So just totally love that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is Scissor Tail by OESD. And, oh yes, thank you. Scissor Tail Designs, Scissor Tail is part of OESD. And so Pam and I totally love this design, and we've made some very cool stuff. This one that you're looking at right now is embroidered on wood, and it is balsa wood, 1/8 inch balsa wood. And you notice it's quite a large piece. This type of balsa wood you cannot get locally. The widest you can get is in the stores like Hobby Lobby and Michael's is 4 inches. If you want 6 inches, you have to go to some place that does airplane things, model airplanes. If you want anything wider, which this is 8 inch, 10 inch, 12 inch, you have to go online. And my favorite source for wood is nationalbalsa.com. nationalbalsa.com. That's my favorite place, and it's 1/8 inch balsa wood. And it embroiders beautifully. You will not damage your machine. I have been doing embroidering on balsa wood for 20 plus years, and never once has the service center asked me what I did to my machine. Ask me if I've been cutting wood or anything in it. So it doesn't hurt your machine. It's probably is easier on your machine than stitching over a jean seam. So you can see that I've stitched one of the designs on here. And then I have another piece here that I did with the same designs. And notice I have put crystals on here. On the flower down, or the feather down here, I actually painted after I stitched it. So I painted it. Normally I use Sukaneko inks when I paint this, but I also know that not everybody has Sukaneko inks. So on this particular one, I used fabric markers, and they did a beautiful job in coloring the embroidery. So it's a fun way to do something different. I know that a lot of people have taken my classes on this, and what they say is that when they've given them as gifts, people are in awe that they did this on wood. So this is just such a fun way. It always has to be have a backing. You can't just put balsa wood, embroider on balsa wood and put it on something. You actually have to glue it to something with wood glue. It can be as simple as a piece of fiberboard, like a styrofoam board, or it can be another piece of wood or something like that. So just a fun way to show off the designs.
I have a question there.
Yes.
When you're stitching on balsa wood, do you have to, what stabilizer do you use?
Oh, great question. Great question. Okay, Pam just asked what stabilizer you use when you're embroidering on wood. And over the years, I've tried all types of it, from the sticky back to the tearaways to the cutaways. And I have found that my favorite is a no-show mesh. It just works the best. Okay. And I have no problems with it. And I have been using that now for many years. And when I teach classes, that's what I suggest you use, because it really works the absolute best. Not that tearaway wouldn't work, but I just really prefer the no-show mesh.
Could you repeat where you find the balsa wood?
Yes, the question was, where do I find the balsa wood? And I get that at nationalbalsa.com. And they ship well. I've never, ever had anything damaged, and I've been ordering them for many years. Okay, I also did some embroidery on t-shirts with this design. And you can see how beautiful they turned out. No puckering, and both of these t-shirts have been washed and dried, and they turned out perfect. There's no puckering or anything. So just beautiful designs on these t-shirts. Now I did mention also that I did a vinyl pillow, and I want you to see I did one of the designs on this marine vinyl. And look at my corners, how perfect they are. I did my corners exactly like I showed you in the demo. I mitered my border. Isn't that fabulous? I just think this embroidery design was just perfect. Now, one of the things I did do on here is I have a vinyl back, and I used a super heavy zipper. And you can't stitch across that super heavy zipper like you can a regular dress zipper. So what I did was I took side cutters and I cut out the teeth where my seam was going to be, and after that, so that I could stitch across there and be able to sew in my super heavy zipper onto my vinyl. I just thought that looked spectacular.
Which stabilizer did you use for the t-shirts?
Okay, for the t-shirts, the question was, what stabilizer do you use? I use a no-show mesh stabilizer. Okay. And one other thing, if we're going to talk about stabilizers, just so that you know, that is not the only thing you do. So just a quickie, if you don't mind. I'll tell quickly how I do the stabilizer. I do have my instructions written out there on my website. But what you do first to get a perfect t-shirt is you're going to take Terreal Magic. It is a stiffener, fabric stiffener. You'll spray that on your t-shirt and let it dry. Just before it dries or just after it dries, take an iron and iron it, and that's when the magic happens. It makes the t-shirt as stiff as a regular piece of cotton, so you're going to get a better stitch out. Then I turn the design t-shirt inside out, put a little spray adhesive on my stabilizer, and put it on the t-shirt and turn the t-shirt back out, mark the center, and do my embroidery. Once my embroidery is done, I'm going to heat set those stitches with my steam and then throw it in the washing machine and into the dryer, and then I have a perfect t-shirt.
Nice.
Okay, and so go ahead, Pam.
Okay, so I actually, on the designs that Lana was just doing, I just did a couple small ones. This is actually a birch, the fabric looks like birch wood, and this is supposed to be going into a woodland theme room, and so it's going to actually, because it really was so simple, I just stitched out on this wood fabric and did the border, the black border to look like a frame, and then it will just kind of match the other decor. So I was not as elaborate as Lana, thank you very much, Lana, but I do like this design that stitches out beautifully. So that's it for me on that one. So we are going to go right into the tech organizers.
Yes.
So that was a lot of fun. There wasn't really anything in this particular Sew Fun that wasn't too challenging. It was just, I found every single thing we did enjoyable. So the tech organizer was really quite easy to put together. Again, I shouldn't use that term easy. There was no extreme challenges to this particular project. Anyway, so it's just simply, just a pouch that has the mesh fabric. It has a zipper on the inside, and there is also the mesh pockets on the inside, and then on the outside there is another zipper with additional pocket. Little ring to carry it on the side of another bag or however you want to carry it. But with this bag, there's several different mesh fabrics options that we have. We have the white, we have the black, and we have the gray. What else, Landon, about these? Oh, yes, this product is fantastic. It did call for interfacing, so iron-on interfacing. And this Fashion Fuse by Bosal, I don't know if you are familiar with Bosal products, but they are absolutely fantastic. In this particular Sew Fun, we have a couple different Bosals, and I have liked them all. Both of them actually. The lightweight fusible fleece and this interfacing. This is 100% cotton woven fusible interfacing to use inside of the bag. It is similar to Shapeflex.
Shapeflex, only just a
little bit heavier.
Stiffer.
Yeah, a little stiffer. So perfect for bags.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely perfect for
Love
bags.
it.
Yeah, so it really is a nice one. Nice stabilizer to use. So Anyway, go ahead, Lena.
And I as well did that. I just thought this was so fun to sew because the instructions were excellent. All the measurements went together absolutely perfectly. There was no mistakes on the measurements. So sometimes if you put some of these bags together, you know, sometimes it's just, you got to tweak them a little bit. There was none of that on here. And that does come with a little, what are these called?
A cord wrap.
Cord wrap. And you have little snaps to go with it. And we brought the snaps in as well. There should be on your list. Oh, I put them up here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I
So here is the pattern and, oops, the pattern and the snaps, okay? And the cord wrap went together like in no time at all. And like Pam mentioned, we used the mesh, and there is mesh pockets on the inside as well, which I just thought was amazing, and it was so easy to put those in there. And then we have a lined pocket on the back as well. So just great. This would be such an amazing gift for somebody for the holidays that are coming up, because you have it all together in one, and it goes together so fast that you can make several of them in no time at all, like Christmas Eve maybe. So just a great fun project.
My first one had spare parts. It wasn't supposed to have spare parts, but on the second one I made, I determined where those parts were actually supposed to go. So that was kind of fun. It still wasn't a challenge. It was a matter of sewing and visiting at the same time.
Were those done in the hoop?
No, they are not in the hoop. They are done strictly 100% with your sewing machine. And so again, that's one thing I loved about this particular Sew Fun, is so many things we actually sewed instead of doing it in the hoop. But we do have an in the hoop one. And that is Take a Peek by Kimberbell. And this, again, was another super, super fun one to do. We also have the vinyl, a colored vinyl to put in there. And you can see there's just beautiful pink. There's clear. There's green. Aren't those just luscious? So these are the bags that I made. I'm going to start out with the little one. And that is actually pleather, fake leather on the bottom. And one of the things that Kimberbell called for was the zippers that are lacy along the edge. Well, I have some somewhere, or I've used them in a project or something. I could not find them. And I didn't really want to head to the store to try to locate some. So what I did was I went through my lace stash and I found my narrow laces and I sewed them to a zipper. And I made my own lace zippers, which really I thought turned out very, very cute. So that is pleather, and this is also pleather. And this one was done with the glitter vinyl, mirror glitter vinyl that we brought into Sew Fun last year sometime, I think. Yeah. Was that with you?
I'm not sure that was me. I think it was right before me.
Yeah. Isn't that great? Yes. They're just beautiful and work so well. And then this one is done with Craftex. And now I use the designer Craftex. And the reason for that is the designer Craftex is already pre-washed. And all I had to do was sew it. And you notice each one has an embroidered pattern in it for the different sizes. So that is super fun. Now, one of the things...
I have a question, Nana.
Yes.
Pardon me. What is Craftex?
Craftex is... the question is, what is Craftex? That's a great question. Craftex is paper that looks like leather and sews like fabric. And it comes in several different colors and several different styles. And if you look at your Lee jeans, the insignia on the back, that is Craftex. So it's just a great product. It's very sturdy, and it will last for as long as anything else will that you put together. One of the things that she says in her instructions is, as you're doing this, oops, stiff zipper. As you're doing this, there is lining. Some of my zippers are kind of old, so there is lining on the inside, and that lining needs to be pressed down as you're doing this in the hoop. Okay? Now, one of the problems of doing it in the hoop is once you turn the hoop over, there's nothing underneath here. And you have to, she said, to be very, very careful when you're pressing, because you're pressing on nothing. Well, let me tell you how to fix that. If you don't have wool pressing mats, buy them. Buy a ton of them. wool pressing mats, don't you agree, are like the best things in the world. They make your embroideries look better. They make your fabric doesn't slip on them. Now, I have one of these, and I have a set of these that were specifically made for my PR600. And they actually fit right in here, and I can press on this. So I have no problems pressing what she says on here because this is stable now because I put a piece of wool felt under here. Well, not everybody has a PR600 to put this in. So what you want to do is you buy an extra mat, and then you cut it up the size you need to fit in your hoop. So it doesn't have to be the exact shape. It just needs to be a size that you can snuggle in here. So I would just cut this one off right here. You can cut these with scissors, okay? And then I will put this in my mat for my sewing machine ones, which aren't as thick as this, or my embroidery machine ones, which aren't as thick as this. And this is perfect to have a base underneath anything you need to press while you're doing your embroidery.
Customers asked, will Craftex hold up in wallets?
Yes, the question is, will Craftex hold up in wallets? Yes, it will hold up in wallets and tote bags and purses and, oh my gosh, just about anything you want to put it in.
Embroidery, wonderful for three-dimensional, like the gingerbread house.
Yes,
or
gingerbread houses, oh my God, you can embroider on it, sew on it, paint on it, cut it up, stitch on it, anything you can do to fabric, you can do to Craftex. It is an amazing product, and we can get any color, any style. There's designer, regular, and vintage. And the designer and the vintage are pre-washed, but the designer is the softest, and that's the one I like the best.
And the pre-wash looks slightly crinkled.
Slightly crinkled, yes. So and you can pre-wash the regular and make it look like it, but then you have to pre-wash it or boil it or something like that. Several different ways of making it softer.
Yep, it's a wonderful product. And I think we need to give out another door prize.
Yes, so we have another door prize. Go ahead, Pam, pick something.
Oh, let's see. How about this thread cutter? I thought looked amazing. By Thread Cutter's LED Snipper. So this is what we're going to give out to Carla Sabota. Carla Sabota. Excuse me if I've said that name incorrectly. But Carla Sabota, you now have a Thread Cutters. Okay. So let's see, where are we? I wanted to talk about masks because everybody, obviously, we're wearing a lot of masks. And hopefully everybody is aware of all the really awesome templates you can get now for masks. But I wanted to bring up that we do have available through Gypsy Quilter the nose bars. These nose bars come in a package of 100, and they actually have a sticky part to them, so you can use them, peel them and stick them onto the mask itself, or you can actually I take a piece of fabric that's 2x6, close up, press in the ends, fold it in half, and stitch it into the top of the mask, and then I can slip them in. And obviously we have to wear them all the time, so they have to be washed. That way I can take this out. They do get worn out, so you can then replace them. So this is a great product for your mask. Also, fun, yay! 1/4-inch elastic in colors, yay! I'm so excited because, we're all just having so fun, we're having so much fun making all these masks. There's beautiful colors, green and red, so you can now make your Christmas masks to coordinate with your beautiful Christmas outfits. There's gray and royal blue, white of course, purple and navy blue. So a lot of really great colors for your masks. Anyway, so that is now available. Oh, and this, if anybody's asking, it's a 1/4-inch by 5 yards. So that's a really good amount of elastic there. So, okay, so the next thing we're going to do, actually, it's our, I think Glenn and I both realized it was our favorite out of everything, this book. Oh yes, excuse me. I am so sorry. Thank you. Also, what we have for the masks, we have the fabric for the filters, mask filters, and this is a huge package, 24 inches by 3 yards. I mean, really, you're going to have masks, filters forever. So you can see, and I actually cut myself a my mask filters are 3 inches by 4 inches. So you can just imagine how many filters you're going to get out of this. This is 100% polyester. It's breathable, high efficiency filter material. So it's machine washable and of course very easy to use. Depending on the mask that you're making, I really just use a piece that's going to be right in front of my mouth. So I just slip it right into the side. I don't sew it in. It's good for a couple washings, but I probably am going to replace it. So having this much is a really good idea, and you can see just how much is here. So wonderful material. It's really quite thick actually. So for those of you who make a single mask, a single layer of fabric probably isn't very efficient, so something like this would work really well by just putting in some kind of a pocket that it could sit into. So anyway, again, okay, so now I think last but not least is our book. This is called Table Please, Art to Heart. Oh my gosh, Art to Heart is so much fun. This had so many great projects in it.
And real size pattern size.
And oh yeah, in fact, I should have brought mine with me. But you actually have real size patterns in here. So there's Halloween, there's Christmas, there's Thanksgiving. So it's basically the different holidays. So I did a lot of fusing, and I also used the iron-on lightweight fusible fleece in all of my patterns. And again, it did have you stitching them and turning them inside out. So it was really pretty easy. So the first thing, let's see, where are we at? Oh, we're actually over here. I'm going to walk behind. Walk in front. Okay, excuse me. And come over here. So the first thing I did was a little Mary table runner, and it really was, it was just that you just trace off the pattern that is included onto some of your Steam-A-Seam. I use Steam-A-Seam Light, and then you iron it onto your fabric, cut it out. Then well, actually what you do is you cut out a 10 by 12 piece of fabric. I put the fleece on one side, I ironed on the template, the pattern piece to the other side, and I literally, on mine, stitched right through it. Did I do it that way? Actually, I'm wrong, because I'm mixing up my design, so excuse me. So what I did on this one, I used a piece of vellum and traced it off, and I changed my stitch length to a 1.5, stitched directly on top of the vellum, and then I tore that right off when I was done. And the reason I used a 1.5 is because that then tears off easier. You can use any kind of template paper that's available to you, and that's stitchable, and do the same thing. So on this particular one, I traced it on vellum. I could see how I wanted to place my letters on the fabric, had the fleece on the other side, stitched around, left an opening, turned it inside out, and I'm done, basically. And then this one is the only one I use the Steam-A-Seam on. So the next one, as you can see, that has a lot of Steam-A-Seam on it. So that's a lot of applique. So again, I did trace this off onto the Steam-A-Seam, peel it off, put it on the fabric, cut it out, ironed it on, cut it out, and then laid it onto the table runner. The table runner has got 5 different fabrics in it. I actually then used my leftover fabric to piece together my backing. That way I didn't have a separate backing. So, and then just have fun. It was whimsical. It showed to use, in the book it shows to use colorful buttons. I thought for me, snowmen have charcoal buttons, so I used black, and I just went, made them smaller. I found buttons because it showed white buttons all around, but I found snowflakes. So have fun with it. Just to really, just have a good time with it. So that was, again, a very simple project to do. What else I'm going to let you go next. because I'm going to save my favorite one for last.
Okay.
Okay?
Right. So one of the products I want to show you that I used with one of mine is when you sew things right sides together, you can't really spray adhesive. When I'm putting a quilt together, I use spray adhesive. I don't pin. I am not a pinning person. But when you're sewing right sides together to flip it, you can't use spray adhesive. So we brought in these Clover Wonder Pins. And these are really great to use, especially if you have trouble with the regular pins pinning, because of how they're shaped. They have a nice bend to them, and you can see it towards the back end of the pin. So what you do is you can open them by pushing down on that back little bent part. You can put it in your quilt, and then you lean on that little back part and close it back up again. Super easy to use. And I used those when I was pinning my ghost together. And you can see in the ghost, over here, little Mr. Boo, I sewed them together, and a couple things I did. I am a decorative stitch nut. There is not enough decorative stitches on any machine out there for me. I love them. I would make more and put them on there. I just love decorative stitches. So one of the first things I did on here was the decorative stitch that I did around the blocks. It's not your standard blanket stitch. It's a little blanket stitch with a bow on the top. I just thought that was so cute. And then I used the grass stitch around the letters, which grass stitch is one of my favorite stitches. And then a straight stitch for my spider, and I used a Hot Fix nail head for his body. That's just fused on there. I used Hot Fix crystals for his eyes. And then he's sewn together and flipped. And then I stitched around the edges with a straight stitch. Super easy to put this one together because it's all just fused. And then you have fun with your decorative stitches. So just a great one for the holiday coming up, the Halloween festivities. This one right here is called Thankful. And the thing I loved about Thankful is they have you piece together all the orange fabrics and then cut it out into the pumpkin shape, which is really, really cute. Now, I couldn't use my scan and cut on the pieced one because of all the seams and the unevenness, so I had to cut that out with scissors. I did use my scan and cut to cut out the pumpkin stem, but I didn't have any purple that would look good on here for the Thankful, so I digitized Thankful and embroidered that out. I used the Luminaire for the quilting, which has this beautiful circle design in there, and then they also wanted you to sew right sides together on this and then flip it. I prefer to use a self-miter. So this is self-mitered to the back to instead of sewing the two pieces together or putting on an extra binding or anything like that. Since the binding and the border were the same colors, I couldn't see any reason for adding an additional border. I just did a self-binding. So I really like how this one turned out. This one was one of those things where I just got to sew and a little bit of embroidery. Okay, so this last piece is going to use glow-in-the-dark thread. Okay, so super fun with the holiday coming up. And it is these placemats that I made for my grandkids. Isn't that cool? I used a triple stitch twice on, she wanted you to put on fabric for the spider webs, but I used a triple stitch twice with glow-in-the-dark thread. Isn't that just great? I hope Rilo and Dagger love it. I hope you guys are watching Rilo and Dagger because these are for you. They are such Halloween nuts at my daughter's house. This was super fun to make. And now I want to tell you how I made the spiders, because the spiders were done with the pattern from the book, but I used glitter vinyl, fused on glitter vinyl for the legs. I went down to Joann's and I bought just the plainest buttons that they had in a couple sizes. So these are buttons, and then I used heavy candlelight thread or glamour thread or something heavy metallic-y. And you guys will laugh who know me. These are hand sewn on and sewn on through the buttonholes and to make it look like the spider's body. So this was super fun to do, and really liked how it turned out. And again, I mitered the front to the back to finish it off and complete my project with some scully fabric on the back. Okay, and Pam has one more great project to show you.
I actually have a door prize left.
Oh, yay!
Do you want to do the honors this time, or do you want? Okay,
go right ahead.
Our door prize is, okay, we have a charming. It's called a Charming Shape Cut Ruler. It is by June Taylor. Oh, I like this. I have one larger than this. The rotary cutters, yeah, I do too. The rotary cutter has got kind of a teardrop shape here, and it will just like go right into the slots. Anyway, that goes to Carrie Lemon. So Carrie, congratulations. You have won a ruler. Thank you. I do want to mention a couple things over here. So Len and I we're trying to do the social distancing. Sometimes we forget. On this particular project, when you're doing the lettering, there's a couple things you can do when you're trimming it so that it looks maybe a little bit more flat. So when you're going around a corner, first of all, the smaller your stitch length, the more control you have over circles and sharp hairpin corners. If you're going to trim this out, trim it as close to the stitch line as possible, or you can use your pinking shears. But if you use your pinking shears, the inside part of the pinking shear has to be almost right on top of the seam line. And that will give you the same effect as clipping. Sometimes though, even when you do clip really close or trim really close, you might have to clip a tight corner. I noticed on mine here that it would have laid a lot flatter. This probably should have been clipped a little bit more, but that's just something I wanted to bring up. So there's a couple of things you can do for that. And now for my favorite. Now I had a friend helping me this particular so fun. We get to, I just love it when she comes over and helps because we get to chatting and we have coffee and we're having fun making all these projects. But snowmen, we made snowballs. So sorry, Carrie. You caught a snowball. That was really a good shot. I hit her like right on the top of the head, you guys. Anyway, so isn't this just adorable? So we had fun. She had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. So a couple of these are fussy cuts so that you can see that on the earmuffs there's a little snowman on the earmuffs. Some of them have penguins. We were playing around with pom-poms. The glitter pom-poms did not work well, but the regular fuzzy pom-poms, if you press them, they flatten out, so they came out perfect like fuzzy earmuffs. So these were just a blast. I honestly picture doing a lot of these, a lot more of these, and putting the name of, I have great nephews, and I have one grandson, putting their name on the back, putting together a package of 6 of these and having a snowball fight Christmas morning. So wouldn't that be fun? And everybody then would know what is their, who has what snowman. So very easy to do. The patterns are right in the book for the circles, for the nose. The nose is just a triangle. You turn and sew, stuff it, and it's hand sewn. That word that we just loved, you know, the hand sewn. Hand sew the nose on and hand sew the little eyes on. So these are called Itsy Bitsy buttons, and the source for those are in the back of the book. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I ordered a couple packages of them because they're just really nice. They're really, really small in black. So again, these were so much fun. These were just so much fun to make. Thank you so much for joining us today. Did you have anything else?
No, I didn't. I just
have one more question.
Yes.
Oh, someone is really wanting to know how you embroider on a robe.
On a robe?
Yes.
Well, what's the robe made out of? Is it fuzzy stuff? Then you would have to put a topper on that, like a wash-away topper, wet and gone, to help hold down the fleece. If it's really, really fluffy, you can trim some of the fuzzy away before you embroider. But you really, if it's fuzzy, you have to put something on it. Or if it's a chenille one, you have to put a topper on it to hold that fiber down so you can get a really good embroidery. I hope that's the question, because there's robes made out of all kinds of stuff, but I would assume it's the fuzzy one they're talking about. And any other questions?
There may be some of this, and we'll go back through and try and find the answers.
Okay. Awesome. We really appreciate you joining us for October So Fun. Pam and I had a blast.
Don't forget your show and tell.
Yes.
Ladies, when we're done and this is posted, don't forget your show and tell.
You can post through Monday afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Does that sound good?
Posting
Monday afternoon. Post through Monday afternoon.
for show and tell. Yep. So, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Lana
This
is
was a blast.
fantastic. I always learn so much when I work with Lana.
This was fun. Thank you.
Thank you.